So it is now day 2 of working on this truck. Yesterday, I went to start it around 4:30. We got it into the garage around 6, and then I worked on it for a little bit, like an hour and a half, and then I decided to stop for the day because there wasn't really much I could do while the engine was still hot. You'll recall that yesterday I started trying to get the carburetor off, and today we are going to continue that. So that's the first step, is getting the carburetor off. So on these pipe fittings, you are supposed to use this kind of wrench. You can see it has a little bit of the extra on the side so that you can still fit it over the pipe, but then you have more surface to grip the fitting with. The reason for that is these fittings are very very soft metal, usually brass. So if you use a normal wrench, it can mar the head of the fitting like this, and that makes it harder to get off. You can strip the nut, and then you have a really hard time getting it off. And then you have to change it out, which requires cutting the line, probably cutting a new line because this line was made to be a certain length, getting the old one off, and then putting a new fitting on, and then re-bending this part here to keep the fitting on the line. Now, because of the oil filler thing, I couldn't use this wrench on this fitting. I couldn't turn it all the way because it would hit there. First, I tried unscrewing this, and it must have very tight threads and very long bolt length, thread length, because it keeps turning and turning, and it has risen up quite a bit, but it just keeps turning and turning. Now I could have taken the whole valve cover off with those 2 bolts right there and right there, but I didn't feel like it, so I got out a regular wrench to undo that fitting, and as you can see, I did mar it a little bit, but it shouldn't be bad enough to where it needs to be replaced. But that's why you have to be very careful using regular wrenches on these type of fittings and why these wrenches are good for whenever you're dealing with fuel lines, brake lines, anything where you have these types of fittings. So I got the 3 fittings undone. I got the choke cable out yesterday. I got the line to the air filter out yesterday. I got the throttle cable out yesterday. So I believe all that is left to detach this carburetor are the 4 carburetor bolts. So I'll go ahead and undo those. The last carburetor bolt is really hard to get to, and you can't actually turn it enough so that you can get the wrench back around the bolt to turn it some more. But what you can do is you turn it a little bit and then flip the wrench over, and it can actually fit in the space where it couldn't fit when it was on the first side. And so you can turn it just a little bit more so that you can get the wrench back around it on the first side. And so that's what I do to get at really tight bolts, is I keep flipping the wrench over each time and just keep turning it just a little bit at a time. Of course, it is slower than the normal method of just using the wrench, but it allows you to get the bolt that you can't otherwise get. So that's a handy technique to keep in mind when you're having trouble undoing a bolt because it's in a tight space. Just turn it a little bit, flip the wrench over, turn it a little bit more, and that allows you to make the most use of the space that you do have. Okay, so I've got the carburetor off, and the next step is to get the coolant drained. Now, I'm not going to film it because you can look on my channel a few months ago, and I did a coolant drain and refill video, but basically right there is a valve to drain the radiator, and then there is one on the side of the engine up. Then there is another one on the side of the engine down there.